Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
In the winter of 1997, at a small rural middle school in Minnesota, something happened that was quietly buried by the district. The school, built in the 1950s, had always been a little off. Teachers came and went more than usual, and students often reported feeling watched in certain parts of the building. But one classroom, room 104, was different. The room had been locked for years. No one taught there. No one cleaned it. Most students didn't even know it existed. It sat at the far end of an unused hallway, behind a heavy wooden door with paint peeling off in long, splintered strips. Rumors spread among students that something terrible had happened there in the 1970s. A teacher went mad and locked the doors with his class still inside. Some versions of the story claimed he disappeared. Others said he was found hanging from the rafters, eyes gouged out. The school denied all of it. There was a pipe burst, they'd say, mold issues, but no maintenance had been done on it in decades. In December of '97, Mr. Ellis, a substitute teacher in his early 30s, was brought in to cover for a long-term medical leave. He was told the school was tight on space and that room 104 had just been cleared for temporary use. A little dusty, but solid, the principal told him. You'll be fine. Mr. Ellis wasn't the nervous type, but the moment he walked into room 104, he felt it. The heaviness. The air was dense. It smelled like wet wood and something faintly metallic. Still, he set up for his first class. Students came in cautiously. Some asked why they were in that room. He brushed off their concerns, made a joke, and started teaching. The first thing that went wrong was the clock. It ran backwards. Mr. Ellis thought it was a prank. Maybe someone had installed it wrong. He ignored it. But every time he fixed it, the hands would reverse again the moment he turned his back. Then there were the cold spots. Children complained of feeling icy drafts in the middle of the room, even with the windows shut. A girl named Lucy passed out during a lesson, claiming she felt someone breathing on her neck just before she lost consciousness. When she came to, her lips were blue. The nurse said her body temperature had dropped by nearly 5 degrees. The strangest part? Every time Ellis erased the chalkboard, the words "help us" reappeared faintly under the dust. He thought it was leftover chalk, until one day he washed the board clean with a damp cloth. The letters still returned the next morning. Then came the drawings. On several occasions, students found their notebooks filled with crude sketches they hadn't made, dark stick figures standing in rows, all facing a tall figure drawn completely in black with no face. One child said he dreamed about that figure standing at the foot of his bed, whispering something he couldn't understand. Another claimed she saw it in the reflection of the classroom window, though no one was standing there when she turned around. Mr. Ellis became more and more unnerved. He asked the administration about the history of room 104 again. This time, the janitor, a man who'd worked there for nearly 40 years, told him quietly, "It's that damn room. They should have knocked it down." He told Ellis about the teacher from the 70s. His name was Howard Krause. He taught 6th grade. One day he locked the doors during a math test. No one knows exactly what happened next. By the time another teacher broke in, all the students were sitting silently at their desks, unblinking, their eyes rolled back. Krause was nowhere to be found. Police assumed he ran. But the janitor swore he heard someone whispering from inside the walls of 104 for weeks afterward. By mid-January, Mr. Ellis was breaking down. He barely slept. He said he kept seeing flashes of the tall, faceless figure outside his apartment. He begged to be reassigned, but the principal didn't take him seriously. On February 2nd, 1998, Mr. Ellis didn't show up for class. The students waited, alone in room 104, until a teacher walked by and realized something was wrong. They found Ellis's coat still hanging on the chair, his car in the lot, but he was gone. Just gone. Police searched the school. They found scratch marks behind the chalkboard, deep ones. Human fingernails embedded in the wood, but no sign of Ellis. Room 104 was sealed off again. The school installed a metal door and welded it shut. Officially, Mr. Ellis is still listed as a missing person. Unofficially, students whisper that if you put your ear to the door of room 104 late at night, you can still hear him scratching to get out. Some even say the clock in the hallway outside the room still ticks backwards.
Story number 2.
There was a high school tucked away in a quiet town, the kind of place where nothing much ever happened, or so everyone believed. In one of the older buildings, there was a classroom that had been sealed off for years. Rumors swirled about it being haunted, but no one really paid attention until a new teacher, Miss Carter, was assigned to temporarily cover the class. On her first day stepping into the classroom, Miss Carter felt an immediate chill. The air was thick, stale, and unnervingly silent, except for the faint hum of the flickering fluorescent lights overhead. The desks were coated in a thin layer of dust, and the peeling wallpaper seemed to ripple in the corners, as if breathing. Ignoring the unease curling in her stomach, she set up for the lesson. As the day went on, strange things began to happen. The whiteboard marker lids would go missing, only to reappear in odd places, inside a desk drawer, balanced on a windowsill, or tucked between textbook pages. The classroom clock ticked backward at random moments, and the old projector would suddenly flicker to life, showing static and glimpses of distorted faces no one else could see. One afternoon, a student named Jake stayed behind to ask about extra help. Miss Carter noticed his eyes darting nervously to the corner near the closet, which was always locked. When she asked if he was okay, he whispered, "You should never open that closet. Something's trapped in there." Curious but cautious, Miss Carter waited until after school when the hallway was empty. She pulled the key from the janitor's ring and unlocked the closet. Inside was nothing but broken chairs and forgotten supplies, but at the back, a small trapdoor hidden under a tarp caught her eye. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. Taking her phone for light, she descended. The air grew colder with each step until she reached a small underground room lined with old lockers. One locker was slightly ajar, and inside she found torn, yellowed papers, notes written by students over decades, all mentioning the Watcher. The notes described an invisible presence that would sit silently in the back row, watching and whispering fears into their ears until they broke down or vanished. A sudden sound behind her made Miss Carter spin around. The staircase had collapsed, trapping her below. Panic surged as whispers started swirling in the darkness, growing louder, more insistent. The walls seemed to close in as shadowy figures flickered at the edges of her vision. She felt cold fingers graze her arm, a voice hissing, "You shouldn't have come." Back in the classroom, the students waiting outside grew worried. When the janitor finally arrived and opened the door, they found the classroom empty, except for a single desk, pushed to the side, with a fresh note scrawled in shaky handwriting, "The Watcher never leaves." To this day, the classroom remains locked, but every so often, when the lights flicker or a cold draft brushes past, students swear they see a shadow in the back corner, watching silently, waiting for the next visitor to slip inside and never return.
Story number 3.
It started in the middle of the school year, in a classroom that everyone avoided after the final bell. The room was at the end of a long, dim hallway on the second floor, windows smudged with years of dust and grime. The walls were yellowed with old posters peeling at the corners, and the single overhead light flickered intermittently, casting strange shadows on the desks. The teacher, Mrs. Carmichael, was an elderly woman known for her strict demeanor and icy glare, but what people whispered about wasn't her. It was the classroom itself. No one could say exactly when the weirdness began, but some of the students noticed it first. Objects would move on their own, books sliding off shelves, pencils rolling off desks without a breeze, and notebooks left open to pages they hadn't written. The chalkboard, wiped clean at the end of each day, would sometimes have strange, scrawled messages the next morning. Messages like, "Leave now," or "You don't belong here," written in uneven, almost childlike handwriting. One late afternoon, after everyone else had gone home, a group of students stayed behind for extra tutoring. They noticed the classroom door shut slowly behind them, though no one had touched it. The overhead light flickered violently, and the temperature dropped so fast they could see their breath. Their teacher was nowhere to be found. As they huddled near the doorway, a low whispering started, faint, indecipherable at first, like the rustling of paper, but growing louder. It sounded like 100 voices overlapping, but no one spoke aloud. Suddenly, the blackboard chalk began to scratch against the board without any hand. The whispers turned into guttural chanting, and the classroom walls seemed to pulse as if breathing. The students froze, paralyzed by the dread creeping up their spines. One brave kid stepped forward to grab his backpack from his desk, but the desk drawer slammed shut, locking itself tightly. The whispers escalated into screams, echoing through the silent halls, until the classroom door burst open as if thrown by an unseen force. They bolted out, gasping for air, never looking back. The next day, the classroom was locked tight, and rumors spread that Mrs. Carmichael had vanished without a trace. Some claimed she was absorbed into the walls, trapped forever by something lurking inside the room. Others swore the classroom wasn't even there during the day, like it existed only after hours, feeding on the fear of those who dared enter. Years later, the school demolished that wing, but students who pass by the site claim they still hear whispers and see faint chalk marks glow faintly on what remains of the old walls. The creepiest part? Nobody ever found Mrs. Carmichael, and sometimes at night, the flickering light can be seen from the rubble, as if the classroom never really left.
Story number 4.
It was a regular Monday morning at Crestwood High, a school like any other, but one classroom had a reputation whispered among students, room 217. No one volunteered to have their classes there. Teachers tried to avoid it if they could. The windows were old, grimy, and rarely let sunlight through, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. The room was always cold, even in the middle of summer. The story starts with Emma, a new student who was assigned to room 217 for her history class. She didn't believe in ghost stories or creepy rumors. To her, it was just a classroom, nothing more. But as soon as she stepped inside that room, an unshakable feeling settled over her, like the walls were watching, waiting. On her first day, the class was oddly silent. The teacher was late, which was unusual. The students in the room all seemed uneasy, glancing at the clock as if expecting something terrible to happen. When the teacher finally arrived, he looked pale and distracted. He began the lesson, but kept glancing nervously toward the back of the room, where no one was sitting. Suddenly, the lights flickered and then went out, plunging the room into darkness. A faint whispering filled the air, low and unintelligible at first, then growing louder. The students froze, some trying their phones' flashlights, others holding their breath. Emma's heart pounded as she scanned the room. From the corner, near the old, cracked blackboard, a shadow shifted. It wasn't just a shadow. It was something darker, deeper, like a hole in reality. It moved silently, inching closer to the desks. Whispers turned into chilling, distorted voices calling names. Some students recognized their own names whispered with a cruel, mocking tone. The teacher tried to calm everyone down, but his voice trembled as if he was struggling against something unseen. Then the door slammed shut on its own. The windows rattled, and an unbearable cold swept through the room, freezing the air. Emma felt fingers brush her shoulder, but when she turned, no one was there. One of the students screamed and pointed behind Emma. A pale face with hollow eyes was pressed against the glass of the window, staring in with an expressionless, haunting gaze. The window fogged up from the cold, and the face slowly faded away as the lights flickered back on. Everyone thought it was over. The teacher hurried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. They were trapped. The whispering started again, louder and angrier, filling the room with a cacophony of desperate voices. Emma's phone suddenly died, plunging her back into darkness. Panic spread, and some students tried to break the windows, but the glass didn't shatter, only leaving deep cracks. The whispers turned into screams, a blood-curdling chorus that pierced the silence. Just as suddenly as it had begun, the noises stopped. The door unlocked with a loud click. The lights came back on, and the room returned to normal. The students ran out, terrified, leaving behind their bags, their phones, their sanity. No one ever found out what happened that day in room 217. Emma transferred schools soon after, but the story didn't end with her. Every so often, students who enter room 217 report hearing their names whispered in the dark, seeing shadows move where nothing should be, and feeling cold fingers brush their skin, like something trapped inside is still waiting, still watching, still hungry for company.